Hello, BillWhittle.com members. This is your members only right angle for the week of January 23, if you can believe that. We're almost to February. And listen, when you have members, sometimes it's like pulling teeth trying to come up with a topic good enough for our paying members. And other weeks like this one, there is just so much great stuff just flying around the internet that you don't know how to whittle it down. So I didn't. I grabbed 6 of the stupidest, most 2018 stories that were floating around this week, and we're just going to do a quick fire here for you. So in no particular order, we have, let's see, this might have been my kind of my favorite sort of insider baseball one. Ana Navarro, she's the Republican strategist who's always appearing on the various news shows. She got her Republican bona fides questioned by Meghan McCain. Scott, which horseman is that?
Well, you know, maybe I'm the only one in America who does this. And by the way, Stephen, next time you come with multiple topics like this, you really ought to whittle it down. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well played, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the kind of mistake that only a green commentator would make.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that we've both gotten in there, we're even, Stephen. So, you know, I think that...
Great Scott, what a...
Like, hey, you'll get my bill later. I think what we need to do as a country, really, is when you turn on your TV and Meghan McCain and Ana Navarro are talking or going at it, that you need to do what I do, which is just change the channel. Do something else.
Anything else.
I go outside and look at the sky waiting for the rain of frogs and blood. That's what I look for.
I would rather step on a kitten than watch those two, and I love kittens.
It is, and I shouldn't trifle with them because, you know, obviously they're very important people who have opinions which they speak into a camera. And I, you know, anybody who does that, frankly, is a hero in my mind.
People in the world.
But, have you noticed, by the way, that as you become more important in that world, you get better makeup and hair? I don't know if you've seen this, but you know, some people we've known for years all of a sudden look like fantastic supermodels when before they were just kind of normal geeky commentators like us. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares what Ana Navarro says. Nobody cares what Meghan McCain says. And the cable news 24-hour chatterbox is dwindling in its significance as, you know, fantastic internet shows like this one take over.
Indeed. Okay, next headline. This one's for Bill. There is now a blockchain app to guarantee, step by step, that the sex you're having is consensual. Who says romance is dead, Bill?
One is having.
Apple does, I guess.
Two is having.
Yeah. So how does this work? Do I have one on my phone and she's got one on hers, or are we sharing the same tablet?
Well, you know,
consensually sharing the same tablet. That's what I meant to say.
I'm pretty sure there's some sort of near-field communications involved.
So what is this? What is it, like a checklist? Is it like a pre-flight checklist?
You're basically both confirming through a blockchain, so it can't be altered, that every step you're taking is consensual. Which, I mean, you can't even get the screen out of your face when you're doing stuff.
I'll give you a half-serious answer to this, actually. Right. This kind of thing is promoted by either feminists or Omega men.
Betas.
Who are trying to get a little time with feminists. So these are the people that support these kind of things. And my half-serious answer to this is, ladies, I don't think this is a path you want to go down. I really don't. Because for the history of the species and for every other mammalian species with one or two exceptions, most species on Earth, it's the male that does the puffing up and the you know, the colorful feathers and makes the introduction and basically says, well, here I am, and what do you think? And then the woman gets to decide which one she likes, and that's basically how nature works. And you don't have to like it, but that's how it works. The harder you make this for men, the more difficult it's going to be for you. I've heard many young women say this whole idea of asking a guy out is actually relatively terrifying. Yeah,
welcome to our world.
Actually, it used to be back, you know, when I cared. And so I don't think this is a road you want to go down to. This is another one of those "what's a fish without his bicycle," kind of issues. My feeling is, if you're in private in a restaurant. Look, this is not hard to figure out. I mean, we don't need an app for this. Anybody who was ever raised with any sense of decency and morality knows how this works. If you go out to dinner on a date, she's agreed to go on a date, and if you behave yourself like a gentleman and you're half interesting and you say something to the effect of, would you like to come over for a drink, and you say yes, that's not a consent for sex, but it is a step in that direction, and everybody knows it. And there are probably 4 or 5 different circuit breakers in this process where one party or the other, and we know which party that's going to be, says, I don't think so, or I'm not comfortable, or not right now. And at that point, if the instigator doesn't break off, then you got a problem. But you cannot crucify the guy for going from first base to second base. That's just how it works. And people who want to abdicate that authority. Well, we had one of these with we were looking at C. Sanzari, right? Some woman said that she was that he basically assaulted her because they went out, had a date, went over to his house, had some things to drink, found themselves naked, and at this point she got uncomfortable. I don't buy it. I don't. No. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah.
And Steve, I think.
Sorry.
There are 3 things for our female viewers, which actually our female viewers would tell us.
I have to add one thing. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I have to add one thing. At which point she became uncomfortable, and at which point Aziz Ansari said, well, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, and simply backed off, and off she went, right? So now there's this tremendous harm here. Please, you don't want to go down this road, ladies.
No.
So
Scott?
There are 3 tips. Number 1, say what you mean. Number 2, exercise situational awareness. And number 3, conceal carry.
Bingo. And if you want to just skip the first 2 steps, that's cool too. All right. Third headline. This one's for Scott. NBC's Lester Holt goes to North Korea, complies with the state's censorship demands, and calls it news.
Well, that is, in his world, that's as close as it gets. I mean, they've been complying with the state censorship demands for years. I'm torn on this because certainly if you get to go to North Korea, which is at the heart of one of the bigger news stories of the day, how do you say no to that? How do you say, well, no, I'm not going to do that? I think you can go in saying, look, I'm going in on these conditions because tyrannical dictators don't let you come in with free access to talk to anybody and allow you to, walk out with unedited video. You've got to comply. If you're reporting from Berlin in 1939, there are only certain things you can get away with saying. And, some things you can convey with, idiomatic speech that your overseers don't understand. Some things you can convey with a look or with a tone of voice. But ultimately, that's the only way you get into places like that. Now, after you get out of a place like that, I think you need to be honest about what happened there and give a full accounting and not portray it as something where, you've seen the glorious future and it is Pyongyang.
Yeah, you don't want to. You never go full Walter Duranty. You're gonna like this one, Bill. Comedian Greg Proops, who you may remember him from Comedy Central about 25 years ago.
Yes, I know comedian Greg Proops rather well.
He calls conservatives Nazis on Twitter, and then runs and hides in a going full Brave Sir Robin. I thought comedians knew how to deal with hecklers, Bill.
What do you mean he runs and hides?
He shut down, he blocked people, all the rest. Everything you do on Twitter to conceal your embarrassment.
Greg Proops has quite a lot to be embarrassed about.
His name, for example.
Yeah, among other things. I've heard some of his. He was excellent on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
That was a great show. I loved him on that.
Yeah, he was probably the 4th best person on any 4-person team. He certainly was in the top 75% of his class.
He was vying for 4th best. Yeah.
But I saw him on that, and I thought he was very good on that. I've seen his stand-up or listened to bits of it since then. And this is the kind of there's a lot of this out there. This is the kind of comedy that's not funny. It's a bunch of socially laced comments, tinged with snark and sarcasm and overstating the case a little bit, and people kind of snicker a little bit, and it's just a snark fest. It's not actually funny or original in any particular way. So of course I'm not surprised that he goes and runs. People like us are in this fight because we're in it for the moral reason. I'm sure Pripps thinks the same thing. But the difference between him and us is that we've got ammunition and he doesn't, and we also have armor and he doesn't apparently.
Yeah, it takes a thick skin to sit in these chairs some days. All right. Oh boy, I shouldn't give this one to Scott, but I'm going to because I gave the blockchain one to Bill. Scott, today's ethical dilemma presented by the people who make who talk about the people who make these things. Can sex bots be transgender?
I'm sorry, I don't even know what that question means. What is that?
Indeed.
There are only about 6 terms that need to be defined there for me in order to answer that question.
Well,
it's a software upgrade.
Yeah, if you swap
actually,
out,
it's a software downgrade.
If you swap out the hardware in a sex bot, is it now transgender? This is the thing we have to worry about today.
It's interesting because this word, the sex word, has been misused for years. The term gender refers to language. The term sex refers to biology. It refers to whether something is male or female. So it's interesting that they don't call them gender bots. Can a gender bot be transsex? I don't. I think we've gotten to the point where you can't have a serious conversation about something like this because the entire society has beclowned itself if it is willing to engage in conversation about things like this. I think that people forever have done whatever they could to delight their prurient interests. I think that will continue, and technology will be a part of that. I think that the heart of man has not changed since the creation, or at least since the fall, and that only the distribution systems have been upgraded. And this will continue as far as the eye can see, and as long as there is, as I think, Steve, you once said that if you have a strange hobby, somebody's already made porno about it.
Yeah, Rule 34.
I might just add to this that the whole idea of a machine having a sex or a gender is fairly ridiculous.
It is.
They didn't have this particular... If you really want to, after you've had lunch and had chance to digest it, look up Iron Maiden and not the rock band. The term originally came from naval ships or ships at sea in the age of the great sail ships, when crews are out there for 6 or 7 months and sailors would basically cobble something together. So to call this thing to give this thing a gender or a sex is kind of like giving it to a toaster, right? It's a machine, is what it is. It's a machine. You're having sex with a machine.
And I will say this.
You can't even call it sex. Sex is between, 2 or more people.
I will say this for our computer overlords. At least they run on binary. It's 1 or 0.
Ooh, well played.
Indeed. All right, last one. Bill, eating Tide Pods. The Tide Pod Challenge. Go.
What's a Tide Pod?
Have you not heard of this
Tide.
for real?
No.
Bill's not on social
Tide Pod
media.
is a laundry detergent pod that I think has the fabric
Tide,
softener.
a Tide Pod.
Built
Yeah.
I thought you
in.
said Tide Pod, like Thai food.
No,
Eating a Tide
Pod. and
People eat Tide Pods?
people are checking into emergency rooms after
Well,
taking
no
the
kidding.
Tide Pod. Yes.
I want to have the who can chug the
orange
I want to have
vodka
a I want to have a
and
who can
curacao.
chug the Drano bottle fastest challenge. Tide
You first.
Pods. For the love of God, honestly.
So are they thinking? Because I've seen the headlines, and there's just something inside of me that says, Scott, if you ever plan to hang on to a shred of your humanity, you will not click this link. That are they thinking that because the pod is relatively resilient, it's going to pass through and they will be unharmed?
I guess they just think they won't taste it.
Wow.
By the way, most of you know what dishwashing, not laundry detergent, but dishwashing detergent tastes like. I got a chance to figure out what it tastes like when I was playing paintball, because that stuff is filled with the same kind of, is it lanolin or
Really?
latex?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get one of those in the face through the grill, you know what it's like to have your mouth washed out with Prel.
Yeah, it's nasty stuff, folks. Just as long as you don't force your sex bot to eat a Tide Pod, then
This
I
is
think
going
we're
to
on
be
the
the
right side of
primary
history.
social problem of the 2020s, I guarantee you.
You know-
is our sex bots are going to be taking these challenges and damaging themselves.
All right, folks. I don't know how to wrap this up except for maybe this. Back in the 1940s and 50s, Robert Heinlein wrote about a time in the, he was writing his future history stories, and he was writing at a time about the late 20th century and the early 21st century that he called the crazy years. And in the crazy years, you had all sorts of social norms breaking down. You had incompetent government. You had the soaring crime and people experimenting with weird religions and group marriages and all the rest. And as I said, he called them the crazy years, and that was 60, 70 years ago. Well, let me tell you, folks, these are Heinlein's crazy years. We just live in them. And that's your members only right angle. Thanks for watching. Thanks for keeping us on the air, and we'll see you next time.